Hello, my students, and welcome to today's episode of Tangent Studies, the show in which I study a film and then I tangent about it. Basically, I react to TV shows that I love, and we try and find the things that we can take away from it that we can apply to life and existence and all those good things. And today, we are taking a look at the episode of the 2004 TV show entitled The Batman. This episode is called The Call of Cobblepot. Cobblepot? So we're getting some penguins up in here, and I'm excited.
Mummy needs a long hot bath.
So, this might just be a me thing, but I find people who call their dogs their child, I find them to be very unsettling. And maybe that's a bit of a rude judgment, but it's just kind of weird. So, interesting thing, people will actually train crows to do this exact thing, where they'll, train them to pick up, it's usually, money that has been dropped, but I think there has been cases of people, actually training crows to go into people's houses and take their money slash, whatever precious, shiny things they might have nearby to the open window, which is very interesting. So before we get too far into it, I sort of realized when uploading my last The Batman video that the sort of episode order is inconsistent. It seems like some places have this being the second episode, and then some places have the Bane episode that I reacted to last time being the second episode. I kind of wonder if the reason is that the Bane episode was the initial second episode, but they flipped the order because they thought Penguin would be more of a draw. Like a draw, could draw people into the show more than Bane. I don't know that. That's just blind speculation. But I thought it was interesting.
Third high-rise this week, all with the same MO. No prints, no forced entry, no physical evidence of any kind.
I'd say it sounds like our Batman, if he were a burglar.
I love how they know that Batman is just that skilled, where he could break in and there would be no trace of him. That is a really cool shot. I think that's one of the things I like the most about this show, is the very stylish shots. And if you look here, the sort of downward Dutch angle, it plays a lot with sort of unnatural feeling angles, and I think that's really rad. I think it really gives the show an interesting vibe, and I like it.
Someone has trained a bird to perform burglaries.
Again, this is actually something that we see in real life with crows. I'm not sure that an owl would be smart enough to carry out that, but it is interesting that they are sort of pulling from real-world things that people will train crows to do. I don't know if they're pulling from it or not. They may have just, written the episode and not known about the crows and stuff like that. But, with that being said, it is fun that, like, in real life, this is a real life thing.
Right, Alfred, tomorrow night?
Sir, it is tomorrow night. We wouldn't want any guests growing suspicious of how billionaire bachelor Bruce Wayne really spends his time after dark now.
I do like how Bruce Wayne in this is a little more, like, he's not nearly as rigid as Bruce Wayne usually is, where, like, Bruce Wayne is very on top of everything, generally speaking. I like how this one is, like, a little more, I don't want to say fun, because fun could imply that, like, I don't enjoy the other versions of Bruce Wayne, but, like, he's a little more willing to have fun, right? He's a little more open and less strict. He feels younger. He feels like a younger Bruce Wayne, and I think that's kind of fun.
Make way, the Ozmeister is in the house.
Yeah, this version of Penguin is very odd. Though, to be fair, I don't really know a version of Penguin that is not very odd. So, I don't know. He's kind of fun.
Well, I, for one, have certainly heard of the Cobblepots. My grandfather used to butler for them back in England, and they were an obnoxious lot then as well. Grandpa Pennyworth worked himself to the bone for those wretched snobs, and they treated him like a stray dog. Then had the nerve to fire him.
This is sort of a funny thing, where it's like, in this, they imply that Alfred is, like, from a long line of butlers. And I'm curious if that is actually a thing. Okay, so here's what I found on butlers. Apparently, it's not uncommon to have butlery as, like, a family trade, where the father teaches the son how to be a butler. But here's the fun part. Apparently, there's a butler school that a lot of people will go to learn how to be a butler, which I think is incredible and very funny, and I kind of want to sign up.
Amanda Raymond. We met last year at the Earth Day thing.
Amanda Raymond. I feel like that name is significant. Everything I'm seeing on this character is talking about this show, so probably not someone from the comic books, I guess.
And try not to dream of these Cobblepots.
And you, sir.
The Batman has some bird watching to do.
I think it's very indicative of the sort of Bruce Wayne that they're trying to create in this show by the fact that they changed his normal grandfather clock entrance to the Batcave into, like, an arcade machine entrance to the Batcave. It's very fun, like, this sort of different version of Bruce Wayne. And it's interesting to just sort of point out those differences. What a beautiful image. I just have to stop it there. Like, this is just really cool. I love the different color skies in this show. I talked about that in my first review. But, like, and then just having that huge moon with Batman's face in front of it. Like, animation really is an art form. And I feel like this is sort of the era of cartoons where they really started putting a lot into the different details of the animation and stylizing it different. And also this was probably the era when they first started having technology that could help out, so they could put more into the animation. But it is just very cool. I love animation, and I love So, apparently something they wanted to do when starting this show is they wanted to go a much different route with the villains than Batman the Animated Series, and part of how they wanted to do that is make them like more straightforward, sort of very comic booky villains. And part of how they wanted to do that was to give them all like henchmen. So this is like the Penguin's evil henchman.
Well, you came this far, Pennyworth.
Dude, that's a great look for Alfred. The brown suit jacket and then the turtleneck. It's pretty good. I like it.
I'm home, my pretties!
And of course this penguin eats pizza. You know, of course, pizza is great. I love pizza. If I was rich, I'd probably have pizza every day.
Dozens of similar crimes across Asia, which suddenly stopped last week and started up again in Gotham. So Cobblepot is behind it.
Just got back from a tour of the Orient. Let me see that.
I feel like this is sort of a really fun way to sort of like teach kids to be able to put one and one together, you know, where it's like because like it kind of draws a lot of attention to like these little details that point to things. Yeah, I think again this is really good at being, because like a lot of kids shows treat kids like they're really dumb, and I think what happens if you treat kids like they're really dumb is you give them permission to just be really dumb, right? And they never learn to kind of be smart. Now, I think what's cool about this is it's actually encouraging them to start picking up on these little details and making connections. Oh, Penguin said he was in this place, and that's where the crimes start happening. See that? See how you can put things together and sort of figure out what's going on? And I like that. I think that's much better than a lot of more modern cartoons that just don't really care. I'm sure this has nothing to do with what they were going for, but when I see this imagery, I think this looks very much like Yggdrasil, the tree that like sort of connects the 9 realms in Norse mythology. And then like because Odin also has ravens, so like this image just makes me think a lot of that. Probably has nothing to do with anything, but it is an interesting sort of just parallel, I guess.
Well, well, well. Come to help with the duck.
I love his sort of like different umbrellas. This show I feel like could be classified as like an action figure show, where it's like everything about this show sort of points to like the cool gadgets and like the different technology and all that. You know, much like the old G.I. Joe or Transformers shows, like it's made to sell action figures. However, this show, the difference is that this show is actually good and takes itself with an amount of sincerity, more than those older action figure shows did. And I like that. I like that sort of in-between phase when like cartoons were still kind of commercials for action figures, but they weren't just commercials for action figures.
The days of Pennyworth serving Cobblepots are long since over.
Huh? You're a Pennyworth?
This is a very silly, sort of grudge here, but it is also kind of interesting to paint like a rivalry between Penguin and Alfred, and that could maybe be an interesting thing that could be rolled into like more serious Batman comics, and maybe probably a different way. But yeah, it is kind of a fun element just for this cartoon here.
Unhand me, you harridans!
My pets haven't been fed this evening, and they are famished. But why feed them seed when they can feast on a treat of meat?
That is awesome. Just the sort of, like the fact that the show is willing to go there, and be like, yeah, Penguin's gonna feed Alfred to the birds. Like, that's terrifying, and I don't know, I don't hate it. I like when kids' cartoons can be just a little bit scary, or just a little bit more edgy, I guess. Just because I think, again, it's sort of like when you shelter your kids too much, then I think it just sort of puts a damper on their ability to actually like move on and stuff. You know, I think there's a little bit of fear, a little bit of action, excitement that can be healthy to introduce kids to. Again, action figure show.
Behind you!
Now, you're probably looking at that Alfred throwing the food tray and thinking, how did he do that? He's just a butler. And no. Alfred is actually used to be the James Bond of the DC universe. So, that's something we kind of forget.
In some ways, man, I'm glad freaks like this Penguin bring out the Batman.
Hopefully it's not the Batman who brings out the freaks.
This is actually a really interesting sort of thought that different versions of Batman have played with. And that's that, like before Batman coming to Gotham, you didn't have like these crazy, criminals. You just had like a lot of mob bosses and gangsters and that sort of thing. But then, like, when Batman entered the picture, it's what actually attracted, like, the Joker or the Riddler or Mr. Freeze. And I think that is an interesting, like, sort of thought to play with. And it's really fun that, this sort of more, I would say more juvenile, and I don't mean that to insult the show in any way. I just think it is sort of a more juvenile take on the Batman. Which I actually prefer to something like Batman the Animated Series, by the way. I like this show better. But it is interesting that a show like this is willing to, dip its toes into, like, more serious, sort of, not quite philosophical question would probably be the right word, but, like, sort of thought experiment of, is there Batman because of the colorful criminals, or did Batman attract the colorful criminals? Alright, everybody, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you got something from it, and that's all I really have to say for this video. So, I hope to see you again. if you're interested in like sort of reaction videos on mostly science fiction stuff, we're talking Star Trek, we're talking Doctor Who, we're talking Supernatural. If you're interested in any of that, then I would recommend you hit the subscribe button. But yeah, until next time, live a fantastic life and, stay thoughtful. Bye!